I'd like to start by thanking everyone. I'm honestly surprised that there are still this many people. After 6 speeches, I had two naps. So let's officially start. I'd like to show you a video. So does this relate to you in any way?
Yes.
So what you just saw is one in thousands of TikTok videos that makes a hilarious connotation of procrastination. Sadly, it somewhat represents how we typically think of procrastination in such a negative light. Take this article by Harold Marano for the Psychology Today, for example. You see, these articles, they take a heavy toll on procrastinators. They deem certain things, mostly bad things, about procrastinators. And indeed, the subtitle reads, Is your procrastination hindering you? 10 things you should know. You might think these 10 things are useful bits to learn, yet they turn out to be not so nice facts about yourself. Facts that procrastinators are alcoholics. They never get anything done in their life. But does this help? Does reminding ourselves how terrible we are actually help us change for the better? I suppose not. So step one to actually change for the better is to acknowledge the inevitable truth that human beings have been procrastinators ever since the beginning of time. And Robert Benchley reaffirmed such fact in one of his saying that anyone can do any amount of work provided it isn't the work he's supposed to be doing at that moment. So let's take a moment to ponder here. I have a scenario that has happened to me 1,000 times, and I'd like to see if you share the same experience. So I have this, what I call a pre-work routine. I would get everything ready. I would get my water bottle filled, have some snacks, and other things. In general, getting the conditions just right to start. But then I quit. With the snacks, I jumped to Netflix and watched all the movies there. So, if getting ready to work by itself is no easy and pleasant task, but when it serves as a means to avoid the more important task, it suddenly becomes a piece of cake. In other words, if getting ready to work was your only task, no force on earth could make you do that. And in his quote, Benchley also cleverly proposed a method called structured procrastination, in which exploits our inherent tendency to procrastinate to become more effective human beings. Well, I must admit to you that when I first come across this term, I find it a rather bizarre combination of words. I mean, how on earth are these two words can go well together, right? I mean, on the surface, structured implies certainty, reliability, while procrastination might come off as risky and a lot unreliable. But bear with me in this talk as I try my best to convince you how structured procrastination can actually help save your day. So there is this anecdote about human beings is that we are driven to accomplish important tasks as a way of not doing the more critical tasks, just like the example I made earlier. So structured procrastination, as Stanford philosopher John Perry puts it, is the shaping of the task in a particular way that exploits this fact. Let me elaborate. I mean, we all have a productive activity that we can turn to anytime, right? For example, reading a book, or cleaning around, or so on and so forth. And Even if you don't have one, you can train yourself to have one. And with structured procrastination, now is the time to put these activities to use. It's all about jumping to these activities whenever you don't feel like working on the important tasks or those mandatory that are assigned to us with deadlines. Then that begs the question, why? What is the point in doing all this? What is the point in promoting ourselves to procrastinate? But I like to think of structured procrastination as both a cure and a solution. As a cure, it provides this self-encouragement for the productive activities that you have engaged in and completed. Why do we need this? Well, I have this graph for you that are actually pretty correct. It describes our anxiety level as we start to procrastinate. The first few days of you watching TikTok videos instead of studying left us with no sense of guilt whatsoever. But then you start to realize its consequences. You start to see its presence in our daily life, see how it is bothering us. And then we start to blame ourselves. That's the peak point. We start to blame ourselves over and over again for the unproductivity and the wasted time. But guess what? Please say what? The next days come, and the situation pretty much remains the same. We still procrastinate. So in this case, I believe that it is the right mindset that can actually make the difference. It should be accepted with goodwill, rather than just torturing ourselves with the mess that procrastination created. And structured procrastination can offer you just that encouragement. So you can take baby steps, day by day. By celebrating our small victories, we learn to become more effective at time management. And then, structured procrastination also has a fringe benefit. What do I mean by fringe? Fringe is that something comes unexpected, or at least that's how I understand it. Because if you let the situation sit for a while, or in other words, if you procrastinate on a problem, the problem matures itself. And hence it can serve as a virtue for creativity. All right, let me explain this. It's also abstract. We all know this painting, right? It's the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Did you know that he toiled on and off on the Mona Lisa for 16 years? 16 years, everybody. And he said in his diary how disappointed he was of himself when he couldn't finish the painting sooner. And he also remembered having this thought that persistently clinging on his head, that something was missing. And Leonardo was determined, and he was desperate to find that something. And yes, he did. In the 16 years of making, he has made thousands of corrections, and hence improvements to the painting. Some of the diversions he took in optics, or in other words, how light is remodeled. It completely changed how light was remodeled at the time, and it set the standard for generations, and still now, we are still applying this model to remodel light. And ultimately, the Mona Lisa became a huge success. You all know that. But don't take me wrong here. Leonardo completely possessed the skill of a fine painter. So much so, his first few editions were good enough for the majority of people. But he decided to procrastinate on it. He decided to let it sit in somewhere in his house, and to see where he could have done better, to see where he could have improved, and where is the missing thing. And that was how a masterpiece was perfected. Another example. This man is Martin Luther King Jr., right? Did you know that he was still rewriting one of his most significant speeches, which was the March on Washington, just hours before coming on stage? Like, literally, he was awake 3 to 4 a.m. to make adjustments to his script. And even when he was waiting for his turn by the wing side to come to stage to present his speech, he was still scribbling notes, crossing lines, just so that after 11 minutes in, he decided to go fully off script, improvisational. And thanks to that, he uttered the 4 words that changed the entire course of history. I have a dream, thank you. So by delaying the finalization of his speech, he opened himself to the widest range of possible ideas and solutions. Just imagine if his script was concrete solid, if everything was well prepared the night before. If someone has written the speech for him, there would have been such empowering words, right? That could have changed so many people's lives for the better. So as you can see from the examples, by letting the situation sit for a while, we give ourselves more time to think, to understand the nature of the problem more deeply. And when the solution comes, it's just a matter of time. That's why you see most revolutionary thinkers, like Thomas Edison or Leonardo da Vinci, they are procrastinators. But the difference that sets them apart from us is that they procrastinate with purpose. And in an essence, that structured procrastination is aiming at. Alright, enough of technical stuff. I'd like you to think or make a to-do list, if you could, of the things you want to accomplish tonight. And after some time, I'd like to transform your to-do list the structured procrastination way. So let's say 20 seconds for you to think of something you want to accomplish tonight. Oh, you have it already. Thank you so much. Alright, so after like 20 seconds, I'm pretty sure that you have an idea of what you want to accomplish tonight and how your to-do list should look like right now. So now I'd like you to reflect on your own to-do list with 3 pieces of advice that I have for you. Alright, first, look out for generic tasks. And what do I mean by generic? Generic tasks are like, are overwhelming by its generality. Let's take, for example, learn German. Like, learn an entire language in a night. Do you often make tasks like that? You see, it creates stress, intimidation, and all the other unfavorable emotions, which hinders our progress by making us wrongly, delusionally thinking that this task is daunting, insurmountable, and there lies no point in completing it. So to fix this, just simply break the big task down to smaller subtasks, things that you can actually accomplish in a night. In that way, our brain responds better to smaller and manageable tasks, which then sets us off on a good start. Make sure that the tasks on your to-do list are sufficiently provided with instructions. Instructions help you navigate at the beginning of a task. For example, it can guide you where to find the material, because sometimes I do forget where my book is, and which part of the material to work on, and so on. Instructions exist so you don't feel overwhelmed at the beginning of a task. Because you have to agree with me on this. because sometimes starting is actually the hardest part. And it is regardless of whether the remaining part after you start is completable or not. But starting is actually the most challenging part of accomplishing a task. So making the task more approachable and specific can actually help you go a really long way. To do this, simply add instructions or prompts or cues as that it answers questions like how to do the task, where or which method is the best way. I don't know, this is where your creativity spawns. But it all lies in one motto. Go further, go extra steps in planning your to-do list. And you'll see how effective it can be. And last but not least, which is the essence of structured procrastination, is that make sure that your list contains productive activities to your liking. There's this misconception with to-do lists, is that to-do lists must only and should only include mandatory tasks. Those assigned to us with deadlines. A week from now, 2 days from now, not yesterday, tomorrow. But the truth is, it is equally as important to have activities that you deeply want to do and enjoy doing. And if it can be productive, then that's very good. And to harness the power of structured procrastination, just jump to these. Occasionally switch to these activities when you feel, or when you come to a block working on the mandatory task. So by applying these principles of structured procrastination, you can manage your time effectively, gradually, and enjoy a pleasant balance between mandatory and personally fulfilling activities. It struck me that procrastination is of human nature. And those who go on bragging about themselves, never procrastinate anything in their life, is straight up lying to our face. Because that can't happen. We procrastinate. We hold things off. And when I'm saying this, I know in your minds spark some activities, some missed deadlines. But it's important to acknowledge that it is of human nature, and procrastination is not the end of the world. And only by procrastinating purposely can we learn to become better and more effective at time management. Thank you.